running front of house on Sunday mornings, there's a list of about 1 billion things that it seems like that we need to be checking before our service starts on Sunday morning. If you're trying to do all that from memory every week, you're gonna be inconsistent and you're gonna have too many failure points and you're not gonna know what went wrong one week versus the other. So in this video, we're gonna go over our 10 things that we think are the most important things that you need to write down so that you can be as consistent as possible week to week. And the first thing is batteries. We need to be checking our batteries. First thing you do when you walk through the door. Batteries are crucial to Sunday mornings, and it might feel silly that I'm saying that. If we don't have batteries charged when we go into rehearsal, we can't rehearse because we don't have vocal mics, we don't have hip packs. And so the reason that we check that first is that if we need to start charging them for some reason, we can. And then if we need to run down to a convenience store to go buy some more, we can, right? So the first thing you need to check is batteries. Next on this list is gonna be backups. We need backups for a lot more than just our pastor's mic. We probably need to have at least one backup microphone for whoever's leading worship. And it might go as far as having a wired microphone that's in a little floor pocket on stage. That way you always have something available, even if you don't have backup batteries and you didn't check your batteries that morning, you've got a backup and it's ready to go. Next, after backups, it's time to go to the console and turn everything on. Turn on our system, turn on our console, log into everything, and start doing line check. And the thing we need to make sure is not happening during line check is clipping. We do not want to be clipping any input. We don't want that, right? We don't want it to be clipped. We want it to be nice and clean. Because if we have clipping inputs on the front end, none of those beautiful sources and those beautiful people on stage will sound their best in our front of house mix. At my church, we run all of our gains no higher than minus 15 dB. And we have actually a video on the MxU platform comparing minus 12, minus 15, minus 18 dB, and how much headroom that gives you to the end. So there's a link to that video in the description. You can watch that after this video. Moving on from there, we need to make sure that every input and every singer is heard. And that can't happen if they're clipping. Everything's gonna come back to clipping through this. But we need to make sure that every person that is on that stage can be heard in some form or fashion. Rhythm guitar, let's make sure we can hear them. Let's make sure the acoustic's not buried in the mix. Let's make sure that that 4th or 5th BGV, who maybe it's their first Sunday singing, let's make sure we can hear them. It is possible to have everything in the mix and for it to be balanced in a good sounding way. The next thing on our list is to make sure our vocals are intelligible. Your mix might sound nice and full, but if no one can actually understand the vocals, then that mix is worthless in comparison to a mix that maybe isn't as awesome, but everyone knows exactly what the worship leader's saying and what they're singing on Sunday morning. The next thing we need to do is check our broadcast mix. Not everyone mixes broadcast from front of house. Some people have a dedicated broadcast engineer, and that's amazing if you do. It might be a good time to send them a text, call them, walk to their room and ask, hey, can I help you with anything? Do I need to pull some gains down if you're gain sharing so that you can have a better mix on your end? You know, can I help you problem solve anything? Or if you're running broadcast from front of house like we do at my church, this is the time that I need to plug in my headphones, I need to cue up that aux and mix my DCAs for broadcast. I know that I mix pretty differently than another guy who mixes at our church, and I know that if I don't go in there and adjust for that, I'm gonna be smashing the bus compressor on the aux and I'm gonna have a terrible broadcast mix because I didn't take 5 minutes and move a couple faders to make sure that that mix sounds as good as it can with all of this time that I spent during rehearsal making our front of house mix sound as good as it can. Next, after we've checked all those things, our mix is tight, our vocals are intelligible, there's no clipping, we've checked our broadcast mix, it's time to make sure that our SPL reading in the room is as consistent as we want it to be week to week. I'm probably gonna get some flack in the comments for suggesting this, but if you don't use a dedicated SPL meter, that's okay. Use your phone, use your Apple Watch, use anything, but keep where it is consistent. So I have my phone here right now, and if I were gonna use this as my SPL meter, let's say that this is where I would put it on my desk. I'm gonna put that on my desk with the mic listening towards front of house. And that's where I'm gonna put it with the same SPL meter app. every single week so that I know that that consistency is the same week to week. And so if my mix is louder, I know that this is consistent, so I can pull my mix down to match this consistency. Now, is this super scientific? Absolutely not. No way. And this is not the best way to do this, but this is a way to get started if your church doesn't even do this. I would highly recommend you find some sort of permanent solution to consistently measure your loudness, but a phone is a great place to start if you're not doing any of it. Okay, our SPL is consistent. Our mix is good, our vocals are intelligible. Next thing on our list is to walk our room and make sure that mix sounds good everywhere. And you know the spots in your room where your PA sounds its worst. That's where you need to go first. What I do is at the top of a song, I'll make sure that whoever's leading the song, their mic is where I want it to be for that song. And then I go walk around for the entire song. And I listen and I make mental notes. Hey, it sounds pretty harsh when I go and stand right in front of the PA in that direct line of fire. Maybe there's something I can do there EQ-wise to adjust that. Nothing is more uninviting than a mix that's harsh and you want to close your ears. It just hurts so bad to listen to. I'll encourage you to be honest with yourself. If your mix doesn't sound good there and you personally would not choose to sit there, I think you have some work to do on your mix. Okay. From there, the next and arguably the most important thing that we need to check is our pastor's microphone. Whether that's a headset or they've got a handheld microphone or you're using a lav mic, which is impressive if you're doing that, we need to check those. And we don't just need someone to make sure that the signal's coming through, but we need our pastor to come on stage or whoever's speaking that Sunday, and we need them to check this. We need to make sure that the gain we have set is appropriate for them at their quietest and at their loudest. We need to make sure it's good in both places. This is also where you have an opportunity to do the seek and destroy EQ method with their microphone, where you can boost what you know is a problem frequency with their vocal. And you can cut that, right? You can cut that, you can boost it up and really make sure that's the frequency you want to cut out, and then pull that down, because you certainly can't do that during the service, especially during their sermon. And so this is the time you have to do that. I would encourage you that if you have a lot of issues with your pastor's microphone, first I would check their position. I would make sure that the mic is placed correctly. I'd make sure that they're not cupping the microphone if it's a handheld. If you feel like in your rehearsal you just can't get it dialed in, ask to meet with them throughout the week. This isn't something you have to only do on Sundays. Your pastor should be more than happy to check their mic on a Monday or a Tuesday, where you can say, hey pastor, I need 20 minutes with you throughout this week. I really want to dial in your sermon mic so that people can hear you super clearly. No one is going to say no to this. Everyone will say yes to this. I promise you. Go and ask them. From there, the last thing that we would say is to go and talk to your band. Tell your guitar player how awesome their tone was that Sunday. Let your worship leaders know that they're singing fully and loudly and that you really appreciate it. Nothing's better as a worship leader than when your front of house engineer comes and tells you that they think it sounds great, because they are trusting you to make it sound as good as it can. And all of that is going to build your relationship with your band and make it even better than it was. So that if there is a problem some Sunday, you can say, hey Jordan, your guitar sounds great on this song, but I think maybe you're using too much reverb on this other song. If you could dial that back by about 30%, I would really appreciate it. It's going to make your guitar stick out a lot more. Well, these have been our 10 top most important things, but there's not just 10 things you're doing. You're probably sitting there in the comments saying, there's 30 more things I do, and that's perfect. So for you guys, what we've got is a free resource down in the description. It's a template for a front of house Sunday morning checklist. It's editable. You can make it as long or as short as you need it to be. If you don't run broadcast at all from your church, boom, delete that. If you only have a pastor's mic, you don't have host mics, boom, delete those. If you don't use batteries and you're only wired mics everywhere, boom, delete those. Or if you have a ton more things that you do on Sunday, add those things to this list. Print this off, have multiple copies of it at front of house so that you and your volunteers can do this. You know, the things that are in the back of your head that you're like, well, I go out there and I turn on the QSYS thing, and all of those things should be on this list. Those are things that you don't need to forget every Sunday, and especially your volunteers don't need to forget either, and they will greatly appreciate having all those things that live in your head down on a piece of paper for them to check off and say, hey man, I got this done. Thank you for writing this down. It was so helpful for me this Sunday. Okay, hey, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to get more free resources, we're gonna have so many more. There's maybe gonna be some files for this guy, maybe some files for a couple of other desks, maybe some tracks, maybe some motion backgrounds this year. We've got a lot of stuff coming down the pipeline. And so the best way for you to keep up with those free resources is to subscribe here on our YouTube page and to like and comment on this video so that YouTube knows to keep showing you our stuff. We really want to engage with you all and learn what your problems are so we can help you solve them this year. So go get that free resource for that front of house checklist and start using it this weekend. And hey, also watch that video on gain staging. It's crucial that your gain staging is consistent every week, and that's also something that needs to be on that list, right? We need that to be consistent every single week. All right, thanks. We'll see you in the next video. All right, clapper slate. Everything's there. Cool, cool, cool. It's the last time you seen one of these things? Little flip Mino HDs. Pretty sick. Got a light. Can't see that guy. LED stuff. Sick.